there was this, I guess this meme that these guys had done where they were trying to, the water bottle challenge, where you try and make the water, you flip the water bottle and you're trying to make it
Oh,
land.
but yeah.
They kind of extended it and they were trying to throw something to stick on the wall, on the window. And so I was just watching it, and then the guy threw it up. And as he threw it up, it hit the window and it made this sound. And I was like, that's the sound I need for this show. And bro, do you know what he threw? It was a bloody dildo, bro.
Hello and welcome to Grind, Hustle, Repeat. I'm your host, Neodate Evans, and this is the show where we talk to creative entrepreneurs and discuss the ups and downs of their creative journeys, and hopefully by doing so, give some insight to you guys. Now, today's guest is a man that I hugely admire. I look up to him. His family, I've got the honor of calling him my cousin. He's a producer, a composer, co-founder and co-artistic director of the hip-hop dance theatre company Boy Blue. He is also a professor of electronic music at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, where he was awarded an honorary fellowship in 2018. My guest today on Grind, Hustle, Repeat is MIKEY J Asante. Chale, how?
Wait. Let's take a moment for that intro, bro. Man, been practicing in the mirror, yeah?
Listen. I was gonna make sure that I gave you your flowers. Like, I'm like, you've got accolades. Let me assure that I allocate the correct accolades to you so that the people know.
If I'm honest, I wasn't even talking about the accolades. I was talking about how you presented that, bro. I'm super impressed. I was like, yo, I'm on a TV program. I'm on an interview right now. I started getting a bit shook, like, who? I said, I might have to take off this hoodie. I'm getting warm. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be beamed places.
Well, if we're going to do it, let's do it, innit? If we're going to do it,
big up, man. That was sick, man. Hey, I'm proud of you, bro.
Oh, thank you very much. Much. But then on the flip side of that, the funny thing is, when obviously I decided that I was going to do this and then speak to you, it's always weird trying to start a conversation with you in like a formal setting.
Yeah.
Because obviously if we're sitting down normally, we'll just chop it up and whatnot have you. So
it feels a bit more pushed, like, yeah, because we talk like this normal.
Exactly. So, and it's like, even you come to the house, I don't introduce you to the house like that. But what did happen was, it was about 2 days ago, I watched the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion. I don't know if you've been able to see that yet.
Not just yet.
And one of the things that they said in there that just kind of struck something in me was they were talking about when the show started, how they could never have even, they were like, okay, this show's going to be popular, but they could never have had any idea about the impact and the legacy that this show was going to have globally around the world.
Yeah.
And so then that got me thinking about you and Ken, and going back to 1990, what would it have been when you guys started?
So the company specifically started in 2001. Ken, we always kind of take it from when Ken started dancing, which was like 1999. That's when we made our first dance group called Matrix.
Okay.
Based after the film and everything. But then what was interesting was that I had been doing the dance thing and all the entertainment thing from time. So it's funny, we do use Ken's timeline as the timeline of Boy Blue. So 2001.
2001. So since, like, could you have had any idea about the impact and the all of the things that you like, even what Boy Blue looks like now? Could you have even envisaged, like, or what was the plan when you were like, okay, we're doing this dance thing? Where was there a plan? What was going through your minds?
Bro, there was no plan, man. Like, each year just became another year that we did it. Like, we weren't even thinking about it, if I'm honest. Like, it was just an interest that turned into a love, that turned into a passion, that turned into a business. For me, even specifically as Mikey, it was like, technically it was my side hustle. Do you know what I mean?
What was you doing at the time?
I just started my music career essentially, because by that time I was at uni studying, and then obviously I go on to in 1999, going on into 2000, sorry. I just like, you know what I mean? I was doing uni, I was working, I started trying to do production, but I started production when I was like 14. And then by 20s, when I just said, well, 19, like, going into my 20th year, I turned around and said to my parents, I'm not going uni no more. So it's like each year,
We're going to get to that as well.
yeah, each year it just became a thing to do that we wanted to do. And then 23 is when it kind of locked in that I wanted to do music full time. Then I stopped dancing.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, if I'm honest, as I said, it was more like a side hustle. It was me focusing on Ken and saying, I want this thing for Ken to be solid. So I wanted to bring the business, because he wasn't really thinking about the business aspects of what we were doing. And I said, nah, bro, let's turn it to a proper business kind of thing. And our first session we did like at Jim Carner in Ilford.
Mm-hmm.
I turned around and said, you know what, let's bring everybody in, let them do a taster. I'll pay for the session so that people can just see what it's like first. Mm-hmm. And then if they come back next week, then we're good. Do you know what I mean? So more than anything else, it was just responding and reacting to what was happening, and the first thing that was happening was people were interested in dance in our area. That's like in Stratford, Newham, Tower Hamlets, people were interested in it. And then, by our 5th, 6th year, then, we're attracting, because me and Ken had done, we had a group before that called KMK, which was Kenrick Michael Kelroy, which is his younger brother. And like, we made that group, and then now our name kind of spread because we won a competition called GWI back in South London, and we were the only East crew. Like, do you know what I mean? So it was a big deal to kind of throw ourselves into that ring as East London lot, but then at the same time, it helped spread us and what we were about. And then what made it even more powerful was the music side, because I started doing stuff with soundtracks. So when I started changing people's soundtracks and stuff, then it was like, oh, what is this thing? And then, it ended up being a massive thing for the dance scene, like to have a soundtrack, with sound effects and cutting your tracks or mixing them became a big thing. And it became like a standard eventually, So we were doing these things, not out of grand design, but just more interest and just having a go. And then, eventually it just built and built and built till obviously 2012 we do the Olympics. I can't even remember what year we find ourselves in the GCSE, and so kids are learning about us in dance. Ken's at MBE. I then become a fellow over here. Bruv, there is no design. It's just the interest which went down that road.
So I guess you would say really what the driver was the passion, just being able to
fully
be in a space to be passionate about what you're doing and to be able to let the creativity flow. Now, one of the things that you said earlier on was about telling your mom and dad that you were going to drop out of university. And obviously you just said that very casually.
Yeah.
I just told them I'm not going to do that anymore. But how did that conversation happen, and what was there fallout from that?
Bruv, you see, I think the beautiful thing about me in that regard is that I'd always been this way. And recently, talking with dad specifically, we've been spending a lot more time together. And he was just telling me, like, Michael was different. We were told early that if we didn't allow this boy to be the way he is and the way he moves, he's going to rebel. Other friends had told them he's going to rebel. So they had to follow me and move with me. And from a kid, they said that, Michael I was so into music and so into those things that I don't think it was a shock per se, even though I can imagine for my dad, because he was paying my school fees, bro, like a lot of money. But I'd been to, my dad took me to acting classes because people were like, he's really interested in acting. He took me to my singing classes. He paid for all of these things. Do you know what I mean? He was very active in the financial aspect of it. And then mum was more active with just the supporting aspect. So I think I'd proved myself. And I remember even giving advice to this kid one time, a friend of mine at school. She said, oh, this boy, he's really talented. And mum doesn't want to give him the chance to kind of go and do this, that, and the other. And I said, look, the bottom line is he has to do both. He has to get his grades. it's important. He needs that background. But at the same time, if he does that, then what ends up happening, and what ended up happening for me, was every Christmas present, every birthday present was related to my interest and my passion.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a shock per se in terms of not going, because Michael, I guess, to them, this is how he is. But yeah, I just was like, Mum, I'm not going to go uni anymore. And my mum said, oh, okay. Um, well, I said, I want to focus on my music full time, and I want to try and have a go. And all they said to me was, well, mum said to me was, okay, Michael, just do your best. And that was it. That was it.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I think there are going to be a generation of people possibly watching this that aren't even really going to understand how, like, just that act of allowing you to do what you want to do, follow your dream, how groundbreaking,
bro,
that was.
I mean, I did a talk at Oxford, bro, which was mad. The ACS over there invited me in to come and give them, because there's some talented, I mean, creatively talented individuals, as well as, you know, biochemists and lawyers, and brother, it was mad to sit down and talk to them, because they wanted to hear how do we make these two worlds merge? What does that look like? And I was like, obviously, you know, at some point you have to focus on one thing to kind of be, what is your best, because for me, my main motivation was never ever the accolades and the hype and the fame. It was always just being the most happiest self. And this stuff makes me the happiest. And I just want, I want to be a dad. Like that's one of my biggest goals. And I just want to be the happiest man for my kids, you know, at one stage. And this brings me the most amount of happiness. So that's the first thing I kind of made them understand. But then also on the flip side, it's like, bro, if you're emanating that energy, that passion, that drive, people can't not be, I guess, expectant of that energy from you.
Mm-hmm.
So when I said that and I went at it gung ho, my parents weren't bothered. Like, in the sense, obviously, I was one of the first in our line to go to uni, but it was like, yeah, this boy is going to do that. You know, they kind of saw, I guess, the passion that was there. And I think what's strange is that inadvertently it's moved back into education. So like I said, when I spoke to those guys, because obviously I'm a dropout, and I'm talking to the guy, them in uni about,
You're the professor.
Yeah, I'm saying, look, and then eventually I become a fellow, and then I give them that day where they, you know, and this time it's on a bigger scale. Do you know what I mean? It's the highest accolade that they could possibly give.
And I think that's beautiful in the sense of how it comes full circle like that. And I think that's a lesson to parents and even to myself of how you have to be able to be in a space. And I really respect mum and dad in that instance, because it's hard.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at your child, and all you ever want for your child is the best for your child. But
exactly,
what we realize now is that what our best is defined by our experiences. So for me, I wanted to be an actor. My dad had no experience of actors, or there was no actor to look at to say, oh, this guy's an actor, he's living all right. And so the immediate thing was to shut it down, because you're looking out for the best interests of your child. But
that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. It's fear.
It's massively. And the thing that you said about being a father and being happy for you, being a happy father. When I think 2016, we did the pilot for Yomo. We did a weekend of filming, and Akai, he would have been about 2-3 years old or something like that. And so we filmed Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He was with us throughout the whole period, right? On the Monday morning, I got up to go to work. So at this time I was working local government, just on the road in Barking. So I'm getting ready, and he says, oh, Daddy, you going to work? I said, yeah, I'm going to work. He said, which work are you going to? I said, oh, I'm going to Barking work. That's what we knew it as. We're going to Barking work. And then he just kind of stood there. Remember, this boy's maybe 3 years old. I don't like it when you go to Barking work. I said, why not? He goes, I like it when you go to acting work, because when you go to acting work, you're happy.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that story, bro. And yeah, like you say, it's such a poignant, like, people, I don't want to preach, and I don't want people to think that I know. I don't. I've just focused on the idea of that small thing, because sometimes you can make a job too big. Sometimes you can make the idea of what you want to try and achieve so massive. But I just focused on that small aspect of myself being the most effective father.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? And I just was like, yeah, I've got to obviously have all the other things. I've got to know how to manage money. I've got to know how to manage my time. I've got to know how to look after myself and the house, and then obviously a cook and all of these different. I know all of those things. But like the other aspect I always thought about is I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
And you know me, you know my character, and more often than not, there's not going to be a moment that we ain't laughing, joking, and having fun. And it's because, yeah, I try to place myself in that space of happiness. And don't get it twisted. It's like the job is hard. The job is not easy. It's long hours. It's hard work. And at the same time, it's alone as well, because being a music producer, you're just in, and even being a teacher, people and a leader, people are looking at you to provide the answers, the action, what's next. So it can be quite lonely, but more than anything else in your head, like, bro, I'm happy doing the work.
Yeah.
And I think it has been the driver for everything that has happened since. And yeah, I mean, yeah, for my parents, it's like, obviously, you know, my dad's situation specifically. And in that same conversation, you know, when we're doing my dad's dialysis, if he didn't make that decision, I wouldn't have been able to be able now to support him the way I can, because having the business, having the job, being able to have my own time, meaning, yeah, like even from the professor's point of view, bro, they just say, what do you want to teach? I want to teach this. Okay, do it. Do you know what I mean? It's like I have total autonomy in majority of the parts of my life, other than when I'm working on a contract or a particular, like a film or something. You're in people's time, I get it. But more than anything else, the autonomy has come just from those simple, small decisions, you know, and that's one thing, you know, your listeners or people watching, sometimes it's just, you know, just look at the basic element of what it is that you want to try and achieve, and you focus on that. It won't be so big. It won't be, you know, you won't procrastinate. You won't feel, you know, so bogged down. And that's really what I focused on. And where I am now, bro, is every day is a blessing. And it sounds really utopian and wafty and up there, but more than anything else, bro, yeah, literally that moment saying that to my parents was probably the most important moment, I think, for us as a family. But then also at the same time, because it's you know, it's said where we are today, but it was really powerful for me to kind of want to and decide to you know, bet on myself, you know, bet on you and see what's going to happen. And I remember one of my boys, John, you know, good friend, I've known him since 2. He just said, bro, like, he reminded me, he said, I asked you at the time, like, bro, what are you doing? Just finish. I was going into my 3rd year. He said, just finish, bro. And I was like, no, what they're teaching me is that, you know, over there in this business, you got to be in it. And funny enough, my dad used to say that to me. He said, Michael, music is in you. He said, study something else. And that's another lesson. I should have listened to him. I should have studied maybe business or some other aspect to supplement that passion and that drive.
Yes.
Because yeah, learning on the job was really, really tricky, you know, in terms of business and you know, getting shafted. And the music business is not easy, you know what I mean? It's tough.
No, I think yeah, your uncle was spot on there in terms of like music is in you. I remember like going back years to Glennis's christening, Jeff's keyboard, and you coming in and play.
Bro, if there's a keyboard, I have to play it, man.
This is it. So it's in you. That creativity has always been in you, and I think as parents as well, it's important that parents are able to see that and nurture that.
Yeah.
But
and sorry, can I just add to that quickly? What's also been important in that is that, like I said, with the professorship, even though I'm at a conservatoire, which is world renowned, bro, I'm making my stuff up and teaching what I do. That's what they need. Everything that has ever existed has been made up. There's no way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's been super powerful, is that I didn't have, I would say, specific tutelage which brought me to this area, but it was just that interest. And now I'm just teaching my way, and you know, my students love it. My mentoring mentees, they love it too. And it's just so interesting that, yeah, we sometimes seek for the answers, but a lot of the answers are already inside us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Of what needs to happen and how. But sorry to
we know, and we know I was gonna say going back to that thing of things coming full circle again.
Mm.
So Akai is he now studies dance at Boy Blue, like he's a mini Blue, and so I just really want to drive home the importance of like being able to give your children the green light, because look at that knock-on effect.
Yes.
40 years later.
Yeah.
Okay. Because also, yes, there are other dance groups, but Akai has this confidence of when he walks into the space. I remember that there was a time where he didn't even know that you were involved in it. Okay.
Yeah.
But he now has this confidence when he walks into the space, like, my uncle did this.
Yeah.
My uncle's done this. And seeing that, like, I mean, recently he's become really super focused about his dance and whatnot have you. And I think that's owed to seeing people like you around him, and from our perspective as parents, making sure that he's enveloped in seeing these people doing these things. So you're like, it's entirely achievable.
Yeah, I think what's tough also is that, like we said, every parent has fear and of their child just being okay, from day, and majority of good parents specifically, they think about those jobs that we describe, which university or the idea of advanced learning looks like, which is doctors, lawyers, those kind of professions, as just, they know that you'll be fine. They know that you have a good business. There will be no struggle. Well, there'll be struggle, but there wouldn't be like, it's a solid job. And that's really what it is. And I think, like you said, it was bringing my parents, because slowly but surely, the biggest one for me was TV. As soon as I got a TV, hey, Mikey is on TV, bro, it means so much. I'm like, fam, I'm still broke, man. I'm still living in your house, sharing the bedroom with my brother. I was on TV today, but that don't mean nothing. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I think it's interesting. You have to give them those signposts.
Yeah.
But yeah, bro, it's just like, you have to just look at your child, and obviously I say this is not as a parent, but the advice when parents do come and talk to me or ask me about these things, it is just, you will know your kid. The more you take time to understand them, the more you take time, any person, the more you take time to understand any person and really talk to them and understand who they are, you start to find the ways you can support them in the right way, that anything can be possible, obviously with the right support.
Cool. So I want to talk about creativity. Like in the past, me and you, we've had like some really good discussions about creativity and the pursuit of perfection and things like that. Talk to me about, and if you have one, like your creative process, like where the ideas come from, and how much does your culture kind of dictate your creative process?
And when you say culture, do you mean
all of it?
All of it.
Ghana,
dance,
here, everywhere, all of it. Yeah.
Aspects. Yeah, bro. I think I do have process. And I do have a lot of processes. But I can define a lot of my, if I was to give an umbrella heading, sampling is like a big part of what I like to do. And when I say sampling, I mean taking a sound and transforming it into various elements, like the experimentation. The professor adage is really cool, because it does make you think of someone in the background tinkering, and yeah, that's what I am, and I love doing that with audio. And I'm the kind of guy who annoyingly will hear something on TV and want to rewind it and listen to it again and hear it again. So being able to capture that audio and then manipulate it, I would say that is my main process. But I have individual process in between, and a lot of them are based upon 5 kind of elements, which I'm going to get totally wrong now, but I could give you later. But it's the principles of creative thinking for me. And more than anything else, I'm always trying to find novelty and have play, which breeds some spark, like and then I want to go even deeper, because I think as you kind of progress, boredom can kind of can set in, especially when you're doing the same things over and over. So I'm always trying to find something new, and something to kind of spark that energy. And yeah, it's always based around hearing some kind of sound and hearing what it can and cannot be. And I think an interesting thing is, say 2007, you asked me, well, I think it was 2007, you asked me to make a mix from what was your dad's tapes to kind of make something for what we did. Was 57, Ghana 57?
5707, 50,
yeah.
It was 50th independence. And it was
Okay, so I didn't make that, but obviously that's the Allen family.
Okay, yeah.
But the remix of Adwa sorry me uncle no be yeah. So when I made that mix, like think about it, bruv. No one was doing that at that time. Do you know what I mean? And then that Afro beats exists.
Yeah.
You know? Well, not exists, but because Afro beat obviously is a sound that Tony Allen and Fela Kuti was doing at a time. And obviously we've made our new version. But like that's what it is. Intrinsically, I like to hear something that inspires me, gets me going and flipping it, you know, and turning it into something. And obviously that's a basic principle of what is hip hop. But I think all in all, bruv, yeah, man, it's I always want to tinker like and play with and break stuff and that's my process mainly.
What's the wildest sample you've used, you think? Or like the most random?
Bruv, the most random sample is a sample in Blak Whyte Gray. So I don't know how much of did you watch Blak Whyte Gray?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember the section of sleep.
I still listen to it on Spotify.
Okay, so do you remember the sleep section and then the big? So that sound, bro, is so random. I'm going to tell you the true story. I don't know whether you bleep it out, but bro, that drop sound, like that big drop sound, I couldn't find it anywhere. I was editing these sounds and trying to make it work, and I couldn't get it, bro. And this is where procrastination is so useful at work sometimes, because sometimes I will get into my head and I'll just be going round and round in it and I'm getting frustrated. I'm not really enjoying the process. And this morning, bro, I just stayed in bed. I said, oh man, I'm trying to finish this track, but it's not coming to me. And then I just jumped, that sound, just that drop sound. So I was just chilling in bed going on Instagram, just swiping. And obviously procrastination, if you use it actively, so I had it formalized in my day, because sometimes you have to do that. You have to say, okay, this is the amount of time that I'm having to mess around and play about. And then this is the time I'm going to go do my work, right? So I was doing that chilling in bed.
Procrastination, you know.
Sorry?
That's an interesting way to look at procrastination.
Oh yeah, but it's useful. It's useful. I teach it. It's the moment where you're allowing osmosis. You're allowing the brain to kind of settle on an idea. It's just because it's ruminating in your subconscious. Right. And then slowly but surely, something's going to click, but you have to do it actively. It's active procrastination, not the idea of distraction. So you're not distracting yourself by playing a computer game. You're just kind of letting the body relax. So a book or, the idea that, this, doing this, I was just mulling along it. And then what ended up happening, bruv, was there was this, I guess this meme that these guys had done where they were trying to, the water bottle challenge, where you try and make the water, you flip the water bottle and you're trying to make it land.
Oh, but yeah.
They kind of extended it and they were trying to throw something to stick on the wall, on the window. And so I was just watching it and then the guy threw it up. And as he threw it up, it hit the window and it made this sound. And I was like, that's the sound I need for this show. And bro, do you know what he threw? It was a bloody dildo, bro. So the reason why the sound sounded perfect, bro, and this is literally from a Sonic's point of view, was because the dildo is one that you stick on stuff. I guess a woman will use it in that way. Or a man, whoever wants to use it in that way.
Yeah.
And what has happened, as it's hit the window, it's made the sound, but then obviously the shaft part has shaped like that. So it's made this correct sound. So bro, now if you listen to that soundtrack, that sound is that sound, bro. You go back and listen to it. And it's obviously pitched and processed and turned into, but yeah.
If I ever had to guess, I would never have guessed. Like, who's gonna guess that?
I love teaching that as well, because it makes people understand that, sometimes you just got to go with your vibe, I remember one time I was making this other piece, one of my first solos. And bro, I just couldn't get it. And I literally went down the road and I was walking down to the studio and I walked past the studio and I said, I'm going to have some breakfast.
Yeah.
Mike, you're effing up, man. You're just watching Netflix. What's wrong with you? But my mind, my energy was just drawing me there.
Yeah.
And I kept on watching this Netflix program. And bro, the intro of my solo was in this Netflix program.
Right.
Sometimes, and I mean, obviously I get that privilege where I am today. you might not have that privilege in your life. I mean, I like the fact that you're focusing on the grind, the hustle, and the repeat. That's happened prior, you know, to this moment. Because now I just know how to do what I need to do. I've got so many different ways of skinning any situation, any problem. But sometimes the mind just needs to mull over and follow the energy that is going. So that, yeah, bro, I've found the procrastination to be really, really cool. And I'll show you, I'll try and get you, I'll fish out the principles because I've totally forgotten them as we're talking.
You know, it's interesting because one of the kind of next follow-on question that I was going to ask you was like, does failure control your creativity in a way? But I guess if you kind of, in a way, put failure in the same box as procrastination, it's always something that you can use, I guess.
Yeah, failure is interesting because it means you're trying. I don't look at failure as as failure. It's just learning, you know, because you kind of have to act as if that's what you're going to do anyway.
Yeah.
You're going to try something and it's not going to work. So is that a failure, or are you just preparing yourself for the win later on? You know, you've got to see that as part of the journey. For me, that's what it is. And yeah, bro, there's bare stuff I failed at, you know, attempts at making things and like I was failing the whole time at finding that sound. And I'm cussing myself inside because I'm like, Mike, you're a professional. You know what you're doing. Why can't you make it? What's wrong with you? I scroll on Instagram and then there I find the thing that I need. But what it is I've done the learning beforehand to know that sonically that's going to work for me. That's the study that I've done. That's the grind. That's the hustle and the repeating that I've done previously that now that moment can exist for me. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So failure, yeah, bro. It's, you know, I've had financial ups and downs because I've not looked at my situation properly or not handled business correctly and, you know, or allowed things to slip or messed up or even have had relationships, personal relationships, you know, personal relationships directly, you know, affect how my output has come about. And all of those things have brought me closer to where I am today. It's all part of the same journey. You can't not have those. They're essential for the growth.
You know, you just kind of touched on briefly there about like ups and downs financially and whatnot have you, but you are successful now in the sense that you are paid for your art, for your creativity.
Yes, sir.
For many creatives, obviously this isn't the case. So
indeed,
what do you think needs to happen to make it easier for creatives to monetize their talents?
I think COVID has changed a lot. Right now, when we're doing this conversation here, you know, but if the COVID didn't happen, would we be having this conversation?
Well, let me jump in there quickly for you because the idea for this show I came up with a year ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And at the end of 2019, I had started tentatively booking in dates with people. So I was going to get up with my camera, go to people, hook up the cameras, film, blah, 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 come back and edit. Then obviously some paying jobs came in at the beginning of the year. So you put the creative stuff on the back burner a little bit.
And your personal creative stuff as well. Yeah,
exactly. And so then, obviously then COVID happened. And then now what we're doing, Zoom, became normalized.
Yeah.
And so then later on down the line, in this second lockdown, where I've, you know, there's no work on the horizon. I've got an opportunity now to kind of focus on the creative stuff, focus on the learning. That was like, well, I can do this now. And actually it requires less effort on my behalf. And actually I like the idea. I'm quite a homebody person myself. But I like the idea of not having to come out of my house and just talking to people, but still being able to have these conversations. So it's like being able to use your situation around you. Look, for me, I just feel like these conversations are really important. And I want people that are coming up, creators that are coming up, to be able to watch this and be like, that was actually really useful. But who knows where this goes and what it does from here on in. So
yeah. And I mean, I mentioned it because I think you have to, as a creative, the main thing you have to do, whatever your craft is, you have to stay ready. You stay ready, meaning I practice every day. Don't ever get it twisted. Just because I'm in this particular space or I have this particular opportunity or I've put myself into this realm, doesn't mean I don't practice every day. I'm always writing down an experiment and testing it. I'm always considering a concept and testing it out. I'm always challenging myself creatively, whether it's reading, whether it's studying, whether it's on YouTube or, you know, and taking in all these things. I'm constantly trying to stay ready, understand what's happening in the world, what's happening with trends. And then situations create the opportunities. That's what I call luck. I call luck readiness and opportunity meeting. And so for me as a creative, that's my mantra, to kind of focus on. Sometimes it's not about you knowing exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. It's staying ready for that moment to arrive so you can grab it, you know? And we've seen many creatives use this opportunity now, like just exactly how you used it, Russ. The idea of taking your mindset and going, wait, hold on a second. I can put that head down now and I can have this head to focus on this particular idea and take the opportunity and the surroundings that's going on in order to say to yourself, this is who I am. And it's Nina Simone. Her line stays in my head a lot, and hopefully I haven't said it incorrectly. She said, an artist's job, and this is any artist's job is to represent what's happening at the time. You know, you have to tell the story of what's going on. That's why your work resonates, because people will feel what it is that you are either trying to say or what they're going through or how things are happening. That's the only way you can make great art, is if you're in the moment. But you have to stay ready. You have to stay on your craft. You're not going to get that job if you haven't got your monologues down, if you haven't got your, you know, your accents down, wherever it is as an actor. Practice every day. Do you know what I mean? You don't need a schedule. You just need to say, okay, where am I at? And then obviously inside that, for me, the thing that was beautiful for me was I found production early. 14, I was like, yeah, I want to make beats. But it was 23 that in lockdown, I said, I'm not going to be a performer anymore because I was singing, I was dancing. I'm just going to focus on beats. And all of those things are still informing where I am today. It's also what gives me a massive USP, because to some people, I'm the only person that can do certain things because I've had those experiences. So more than anything else, yeah, bro, I stay ready. And, you know, even during the first lockdown, I made a project called 30 by Thursday. And making that was, bruv, it was probably one of the most enlightening and most powerful moments for me musically that I've had in many, many years. Even though, yeah, that first lockdown was, I did it alone. I was here by myself. And at the same time, you know, your mind is doing all of the things that lockdown did to us.
Yeah.
But I just, you know, said, okay, let me just keep on sharpening my tools. And the Evening Standard picked that up, bro. And they started talking about, they started talking about what's going on in lockdown and like work that's happening in lockdown. They said, oh yeah, MIKEY J, Asante decided to do this, check out Boy Blues video, because we got videos done. You know, I sent the tracks to people and they did videos, and then, you know,
the boys danced to it as well when I was playing. Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? It's like the staying ready and the money aspect and the scene. I think the hardest thing about the scene is that back in the day specifically, the transparency of it wasn't so clear. Like, you felt you needed a manager, you needed a lawyer, you needed a label, you needed all these things, all these gatekeepers to kind of allow you to be the creative that you were. So all the time you just, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Whereas now, bro, I would tell every creative, you want to just do your thing over and over and over till you've created, because the opportunity of creating your own community nowadays is so much more powerful. That's essentially what we was doing with Boy Blue at the time. But we were just doing it in the real world for argument's sake, you know, because what ended up happening, we sold out our first show called Generation Next in Theatre Royal because we were teaching the kids. So because we're teaching the kids, their mums and dads want to come, then their brothers and sisters want to come too, and then their uncles and aunties want to come. Now you've just got a whole community of people coming to watch the good things that's happening with their children. So we sold out before we even put out a promo. That's building a community. So the mathematics doesn't change. You still have to build a community. You still have to make people go, oh, okay, there's value in what they're doing. And then allow all of those other people, those gatekeepers, to say, okay, we're really interested in what you're doing. Then you define your price.
What you said just now is so important, because actually somebody that a mutual friend that we both know, I won't say just now, they came to me, one of their children had been given a contract.
Yeah.
Like, can you look over the contract?
I got that call too.
Right. So even like one of the first parts of the contract where it was like, they'll own your masters, everything you've done, even before you met them. Yeah. I'm not in the business.
Bro, that's standard, by the way.
And this is the thing that I know, but I'm like, I'm not even in the business. And I think sometimes somebody that's not in something will just look at something and be like, well, that doesn't make sense. Because that whole thing of somebody owning something that they had no part in, I'm just like, it doesn't make sense.
That's the business. And it's always been that way. And it's definitely affected people with our skin tone way more because you're just trying to get on. And usually what was interesting about that, the advice that I gave them is that something like that should come with a monetary value. You can sell your masters. Yeah, you can sell your masters. You can say, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. That's standard. In every major record contract, that's what ends up happening. But let me put it to you like this, a publishing deal, yeah, my first publishing deal, they will give you a bunch of money. And remember, you're coming up, you're trying to do this thing, you think it's good. You're like, yeah, oh, finally, I'll be able to buy my studio, create, you know, whatever it is, you're going to be able to do that. But the way, like, if I could do it in the simplest form, they will borrow you essentially because it's not, remember, it is a loan. Yeah. So they are going to go to you, okay, we are going to give you £30, yeah, for the right to claim you know, your masters and your rights for a particular period. Yeah. And sometimes some of those can be your life plus say 70 years or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So as long as you live plus the 70 years. And then they'll say, so we've given you that £30. Yeah, you've got your £30. We will pay it. You will pay it back. We won't have to. It's recoupable, but non-refundable, right? I think I've told you this before, but I'm going to just say it for your viewers. So it's recoupable, but non-refundable. So essentially, if nothing happens, you never have to pay it back. Oh, that's cool. That's great. But now you want to be in the game. You want to be doing stuff. You want to be making money. So what you end up doing is they say, we are going to take £1 every time until, no, actually, let me say it like this. So it's, no, I'm going to take it from £30. I'm going to make it just £1. Yeah. So you have to pay back that £1 before you start making money. Yeah. So now that you've got that bill, so you've already taken this pound, and now when we do the business together, just say the deal was 50-50.
No.
Yeah. It goes out, it makes £1. You split it 50. You get 50, they get 50, but then they get 50 because you're still paying that £1. Then it goes and makes another £1. They get 50, you get 50. Now you've made what, £1? No, you haven't. You've now paid that £1.
Yeah.
And now we're still in the deal. They get 50, you get 50. The truth is, you've only ever made 50p because they already paid you for the privilege of collecting that money for you. So, I mean, it's a basic way to kind of understand it, but they're up. You know, yes, it was recoupable and non-refundable, but you know, you're a young person, you're trying to make it happen. That was majority of the first deals that I first had in my life.
So what's the way around it? What's the because the other thing for me and you, we saw and we knew life before the internet.
Indeed.
Okay. And so we're like that generation that kind of understand both.
Yeah. Yes.
And sometimes I feel like with the younger generation where the internet has always been there, I feel like there's not really that understanding of actually the power that you have. Like, not all of them, just sometimes I feel like they don't really understand, actually, I can use this to level the playing field.
Yeah.
And create an opportunity to generate awareness and attention on me. And then once, because attention really now is the new currency.
Yes.
So once
it's always been the currency. It's always been the currency.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. And it's like, but how now do, and as you said, people from our ethnic background who seem to be losing the most, how do they maneuver the game so that, yeah, actually this is working for me now? Because I'm always like, you know, ownership is a big thing and it's almost like becoming a buzzword and whatnot have you, but I truly believe in that. But how, for somebody in it, how do you make that tangible? How does that happen? Where do you start?
Bro, I think it's difficult because I talk, I guess, essentially from a place of privilege. When you have nothing, you just like, you know, you just want to get on. You just want to be in the game. You just want to have an opportunity. And I think the hardest thing is that you think, yeah. And they'll gas you up. They'll tell you, who you are right now, you could be this, you could be that. And you're like, yeah, I can do it. But they've got all the information. They've got their heads up. So I think the most important thing that people need to understand is content is king. So content is king. Content is king in the sense that, fam, without it, nothing ain't happening. So know your worth. Know that if you're providing all of that energy and that vibe and whatever the thing is, then you're in the driving seat. Yeah. Then the second part is, I guess, just because money has passed hands doesn't mean people shouldn't respect people. People shouldn't care about people's opinions. You have a say. You should be able to say, you should be able to look at what's going on and think to yourself, actually, that might work because of this might, not all the time, and I think this is cool. This is interesting in regards to parents per se. It's like, just because someone is your parent doesn't mean they know exactly everything that's going on. It should be a discussion. They have experience, they have wisdom because of their age. It doesn't mean they have the answer. We can discuss the answer together to build what that next step should be. So you should definitely feel that way as an artist, that someone should actually take your opinion and you guys can discuss it. It's a mutual benefit. And then I think the other thing is, bruv, like I would just say to people right now, just like how you're doing in this particular instance, is focus on just creating this thing for yourself. Like one of the main things about Boy Blue per se is that, for argument's sake, if everyone had gone, so right now we've got executive director, we've got a learning and participation producer, we've got a general manager, we've got teams of people around us doing all what they do. But if worse comes to worse, me and Ken can go back to me and him and make it all happen from the scratch, from dot. So first you have to do it yourself. First, you have to know what the underground, what the low level aspect of it, and build each of your stages in so you understand the nature of the business. Then you only bring in people when it is valid and is financially viable for the extension of what you're trying to do to get to that next space. Because I think the big thing is a lot of people want to jump straight into company's house, figure out their business strategy, all of that. No, is what you're doing got any validity? So you first want to do some canvassing. Yeah. And for us, that is definitely the internet. I look at what Mo Gilligan has done, for argument's sake. That's super important. He got into our heads, our hearts, and our minds before he started moving in all those other realms. Yeah. And he was able to just do that in his yard. Yeah. But it does have to translate into the real world because unfortunately, it still matters. Don't get it twisted. The labels and all of that stuff, it all still matters. They hold a lot of clout and power, and they have invested interest, both financially and obviously in terms of the world as a whole, in all the streaming services that exist. You can't get away from them. But your bargaining power is different if you've created your own movement. They want to get into that. So that's where the power is. Do you know what I mean? And the other guy, the other comedian, I forgot what his name is, man. That he does. Sorry,
Munya.
Bro, that guy and his speed, bro. That comes from everything I'm talking about. He's been practicing.
Yes.
We haven't seen so many of his other videos and all his other tracks. We haven't seen all of those to get him to that level that Chip and Stormzy are having what they're having, and boom, he makes a record the same night. In a friggin' Shell station.
Insane. Like that level of creativity is so inspiring. Like I'm like, how can you not watch that and how can you watch that and not be inspired? Like it is.
And then even like a person like like a Michael Dapper or the other guy, Mike's Comedy, bro.
Yeah.
You can't. What it is put yourself in a space that they can't take that from you. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I think, especially as young people, we walk into those spaces thinking they've got all the answers. No, what is your vibe now? And then once you've done that, start bolting on all the other aspects of what you need to develop it. It will show itself. It'll be very, very clear. And obviously you're going to make mistakes as you go along. But all of them, as I said earlier, it's just going to be learning. So I would say, yeah, content is king. Focus on creating your community. Focus on building that. And then, yeah, do it yourself. DIY all the way. Until you get to a point that you need to add another layer to kind of push it to because there is competition and you've got to be out there competing. I get it. But fam, you just got to look at all of those comedians and how they with just a bedroom phone and even a couple of wigs and a green screen background or something. Do you know what I mean, bro? It's been very, very clear that there are so many more ways to get on now. But yeah, standing out. And
do you think it's easier for comedians than for musicians?
no, I think it's easier for everybody in terms of if we compare it to back in the day. Because back in the day, essentially, and when I say back in the day, I'm saying 20 years ago, you know, they had all the power to get you all the things you needed to do it. Like, I just think about green screen technology. Bruv, it's been around as long as some people are doing the weather.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That was always happening. Michael Fish, when he was teaching us, when he's telling us what's happening in Scotland and wherever, you know, what is going to be raining, that's green screen technology. It shows you how long we've had it. But they had it back then. It was people who had big companies and conglomerates and all of that had that access. But we've got access to all that information now. And so, yeah, it's now, you know, rinse the hell out of what you have before you start adding all the other stuff, you know, on to be professional, so to speak.
I hear that. Switching the subjects a little bit, like obviously ending of this year, we well, the beginning of next year, 1st of Jan, we
Mad,
now
bro.
officially,
Been a whole year, you know.
it's been a whole year. And then funny thing is, it's funny, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for 2020 to end, roll on 2021. I'm like, fam,
we're still gonna be here.
And then we got the added thing of coming out of the EU officially, and that's going to bring a whole plethora of difficulties for performers. There was a guy, he's a broadcaster and a writer, I think his name's Howard Goodall, and he tweeted this quite a depressing tweet.
Mad.
Where he was like, these are all of the problems that performers, artists are going to face now traveling to the EU. And he just went through like,
yeah,
basically it's going to cost you a whole bag of money before getting all like if you're somebody that plays the trombone, you got to get a separate license for the trombone for every country that you're. How are you preparing for that? Is it going to affect you, and what would you advise to people coming up?
We can only hope that the government would figure out some kind of exemption, especially for us as performers and entertainment businesses, especially where we are about to go now. What does it look like now? But bro, if I'm honest, I don't fully know what the answer is, because I think the space is always changing. And really the truth is, and I don't want to kind of push the buck, but the government also don't know. You know, they've jumped into this situation really just because two man them were measuring penises. Like,
that's what it comes down to.
Bruv, like, everyone was living life and they were loving it. Do you know what I mean? I think what's sad is the people who voted against, because, you know, like the people who voted against, they're forgetting that it's actually going to probably add a premium to their Spain journey, their Italy journey. Their, you know, even if you wanted to go to a footy match in another country, it's going to, you know, it's going to be an added tax in some way, because this whole where one is just disappeared. And this thing is before a lot of us have even been around on this planet. So I think, if the truth be told, is we're going to feel the burn, and we just have to go through this burn for a hot minute till people realize it was a mistake.
I guess that probably reinforces the idea of how important the internet's probably going to become,
and how important your autonomy as an individual currently is even more. It's more compounded, because I go back to the 2020, is it 2011, the London riots, when I felt the energy of young people say, you man don't care about us, so we're getting what we need to get. You know, and that is the thing that reigns through, because I look at Britain now, or the UK now, as, you know, they're a business, then they care about their economy, then probably third or fourth is people. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that's the hardest thing, is that we know that their interests are more focused on something else. And even getting back the economy, you know, maybe this is more moving into a political space. They were telling us, eat out to help out. And then they tell us, you man, them are now causing problems. Not a lockdown. Bruv.
The thing is, the whole thing is a circus.
It's because this is a moment that no one alive, even though if there is people who are alive, they're so old, they've never been through something like this before. And that's what really, sometimes I think more than anything else, you need to realize where you're at. and you need to say, I need help, or we need support, or we need to think differently. And you need to allow that conversation to happen instead of trying to say, we know what we're doing. Bruv, like you ended up with Corona yourself. Do you know what I mean? Boris, you just ended up with
I was
Corona.
like, did I?
Oh, not you, but I'm talking about Boris. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, bruv, the truth is, yeah, I'm just staying ready to be ready for, because that's, as I was trying to say before, opportunities have shown themselves. We can now be more international with the internet. Everyone has had the proper moment from, you know, an 80-year-old grandmother or grandfather to a young 2-year-old kid. We know what it is like now to in this digital space by force. So the idea of trying to understand how to stream, we're on that. You know, what does that look like? We've done our own experiments. We are now turning to how we will kind of, you know, we're thinking and talking about how might we present a show or access to our content online. What does it look like? We're now also focusing on the idea that we will, you know, and that's my job to think about it artistically, you know, that we have now an offline calendar and an online calendar. And what would the two look like? And will those play hand in hand? And then all of a sudden, we've now increased our international presence because anyone from anywhere will be able to access this content. So as I said, we're just trying to stay ready. And I think more than anything else, that's what Boy Blues MO has always been. Is our motive is just to continue creating and then moving and rolling with the punches. Because I think if you move into the woe is me space, oh, they're changing, what's going to happen with Brexit and da. Yeah, it's true. It's going to be tough. But resilience is built through creativity. Do you know what I mean? And creativity in all its forms, like looking at something and going, okay, how can we turn it? How can I make this work for me? Just like what we're doing now. How can we make this moment work for us? We're both in a lockdown. We both can't just move how we want to, but you're doing this and it's going to be something that you're going to, you know, move on and build onto. So that would be my advice from a creative aspect. But as I said, you know, that's, I've got an executive director and her job is to come back and tell me, well, Mike, this is what we have to do. This is what we have to focus on. So also know if you need that support of other people to make you understand how to kind of deal with it.
Cool. What should be your defining moment in your career?
Bro, there's so many. And that's a massive question because now I'm 40 in it. So I've been alive a while now.
Milestones, man.
I don't know. Can I talk about a few?
Of course.
Is that all right? I definitely think the decision of leaving Ken on the dance floor in this, you know, and deciding just to stay in the studio musically, you know, that was a big defining moment. Because I did love performing, but then now Ken is on his own. Like he always talks about that as well. I would definitely say making Outliers. That was a big deal for me because that show, it told me I could stand on my own. Even though I have done all this time, it was just like, no, I'm enough of a draw. You know, people are interested in. I didn't sell out, but people are interested in what I was doing, and people love.
Was amazing, though. I would love to be able. If that's gonna go online soon, I'll be the first person to watch.
So I was doing another one in April. We was going to do it in April, and I was going to record it properly and do it. We was not going to have the dance, but they said we're going to try and do it in March. So it might be a socially distanced event, but I will have that online at some point. And then I think making Blak Whyte Gray was really important because that was all in my head, and there was so many things going on. Just from, you know, because at that time I think it was Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, you know, all of those kind of racial moments, coupled with the notion of understanding self and the idea of what personal growth looks like and what do I want to say as all of these things are happening around me. And then I think, you know, I'll say this one. This one's a bit more personal that I haven't told many people. I just remember, bruv, being 21 and feeling like a loser, bruv. Yeah, I haven't told many people this.
What? Why?
Bruv, like, I was trying to jump on.
Sorry to jump in for a second. Do you know how strange, like, obviously at the beginning of this, when I'm like, he's this, he's that, I'm inspired by him. Do you know how strange that is for me to hear you say that?
Yeah, bro, because I think a lot of the time people forget that you're human in these regards. Like, I have every emotion that you have. I fight every um anxiety, confidence, whatever it is, all of those feelings, because I'm built of the same shit. I just go, okay, this is part of, like, just I said, like failure. I said, this is part of it. You're gonna feel that. If you're not feeling that, then that means you're not pushing yourself, right? And I know that sounds quite normal, but I remember 2021 feeling like a loser. That day I just woke up, bruv. I was just sick. Yeah. I was just sick. I just was vomiting. The girlfriend I was with at the time, she was gonna go do class, gymkhana on a Sunday. I said, I'm too sick. She went by herself. Then I I flipping stayed at home. And then obviously I couldn't keep nothing down, water, whatever. And mum was like, you see, or she was saying, like, the girlfriend I was with at the time was saying, yo, Mike, you see, you've run yourself down. And bro, I would run myself down. I was, at the time, I was still working. I was still dancing. I was making beats. You know, I'd quit uni by that time, but all of a sudden, you know what I mean? I'm just nonstop. Sometimes I'll just black out from working so much. And so, you know, everyone's saying I'm run down. Actually, I've got to talk about another one as well, actually. Um, and yeah, in that moment, bruv, I was just sitting at home, obviously feeling a bit sorry for myself because I'm sick. And I was watching TV and I was watching a game show. And as I was watching the game show, like, people were winning, like, yay, bruv. And I just started crying. And I was like, you know, watching it, just feeling like a loser. Like, fam, you're trying to do this thing, you're not making any headway, you know, you're not, and all of these things were just going round and round in my head. But, you know, and then I wiped my tears and whatever, I was chilling. Then my mom came up to just to see me. Oh, Mike, how you doing? You all right? And then she gave me some food. Said, oh, here's some food. I said, oh, thank you. And then she stayed just a bit too long. Bro, I just started crying again. And now she started speaking Ghana, like, oh, my baby, what's wrong? Why are you crying? And I just said, no, it's fine, mom. I didn't tell her. I just said, mom, it's cool. And that moment was it's like there's been so many other moments like that that have just shown me to build that resilience, to actually be honest with your emotions and where you're at and what's going on, and then deal with them head on. So I just got more active. Do you know what I mean? And focused on just being better and stronger regardless. And then exhaustion, bruv. That, bro, I've been sick. I've had some of the most craziest flus. Flu is the main thing I get. I'm an asthmatic as well. So um, you know, sometimes a flu is really deadly and dangerous for me. But bro, exhaustion is the worst thing I ever had. I was going ham one time, bruv. What album was Kane making at the time? I can't even remember. I was working with Kane on one album. I was leveling up with the Boy Blue thing and some of our shows and what we was doing. I was in the studio all the time, so I was running around, getting it in, bro. And then he had called me. He said I was working with one writer. Come down to the studio. So I was at another meeting. He goes, oh yeah, I got that track. So go get the. She likes the track that you was getting. So I went to the studio, got the track, went down to her where they were at, played the tune, was chilling with them. Ducked from that, came back home. Kane was like, yeah, should we get back in? Because like we was doing crazy nights, and I was drinking Red Bull and just trying to stay up. And then, bruv, I was hoping to God, I was like, I beg Kane say he's gonna go home because I don't know if I can do it. And he's like, yeah, bruv, I'm taking her home. She's on my route, so we'll do it tomorrow. So I said, okay, cool, bruv. So I sat down, gassed. I made a smoothie, drank the smoothie, sat down, and I stood up, bruv, and the room started spinning. And I was like, I must be tired. Let me go to sleep. So I went to bed, woke back up. The world was still spinning. Now I was just about to make what was a big kind of track with this artist called Delilah, which we did a track called Inside My Love. And she was a big artist at the time, a priority act. And me and my manager have been moving, you know, as I said, I'm moving around trying to make it happen. And bro, I had a meeting with Ken that morning. Ken was coming to talk about something. I said, Ken, because now this time I vomited. I can't stand up. I can't move. I said, Ken, can you help me walk me to the studio, please? I've got this important meeting. So, bruv, at this slow pace, I walked to the studio. And then I started talking to Delilah, and she doesn't even know this. That when I was talking to her, bruv, I couldn't see her. And I was talking about what we're going to do with the record and what's going to be like. I was like, yeah, brother. And I'm looking at her and she just blurry.
Yeah.
Bro, man, the most painful thing was I thought I had a viral infection or something going on, you know. And I go to the doctors and everyone's been telling me, yo, Mike, you need to chill out. You need to relax. And then the doctor just says to me, I just think you are exhausted. I said, nah, bruv, it's the worst thing I've ever had. And it just showed me how important rest, recuperation, and the idea of being active in your downtime. Yeah, is. And yeah, so now, funny enough, now I know when I'm getting to them spaces and I know how to draw it back. So yeah, two random ones that I don't think you'd think we'd be talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought I'd add those two.
I appreciate the share. Two last questions for you.
Mm.
So the first one is, what's the best bit of advice that you've ever been given? And then the last one is, what is the advice that you would give to yourself when you were 16, a 16-year-old today? So what's the best bit of advice that you've been given?
I don't know. Does it have to be from a person, or is it like a book, or does it
person, book, on the wall in the toilet?
Damn. There's so many things that I'm trying to think of, and they're just whizzing through my head, and I can't really grab onto one. One, I think this is a bit random because it's the one that's popping into my head based upon, I guess, the conversation that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
But, and this probably sounds a bit bleak, but I remember I was doing this thing with a company that was like kind of supporting us in trying to, or supporting me in kind of next level thinking what that kind of looks like, etc. And I had this mentor, this guy, and I was just chatting to him. And specifically, he was talking about the idea of being a man and knowing that we have specific moments in our lives and we only get few. You know, he said we get about 3 or 4 moments in our lives that we can get at it.
Mm.
So be mindful of that, because obviously age, it just slows and stops that. So he said to me, yeah, you see, I'm in my third, or whatever he kind of described it as. And it made me have a perspective of wherever I'm at, I have to go hard.
Yeah.
Because those moments are going. And I think definitely seeing, my dad get older, you understand that all of a sudden your body just doesn't move in the same way anymore. It just is going to happen. It's inevitable. It's nothing you can do. So our moments are fine. You know, they have a finite moment. Yeah. There is going to be a time where that doesn't end. That ends. So that is where to stay ready and kind of harnessing the moment. Really, it made me just realize I have to harness the moment and I have to go hard at it. Obviously, considering my health and all those other aspects. And what would I say to myself at 16? I would just tell him, you're doing all right, mate. Keep on going.
I think that's so important, because I think sometimes, and I know that I'm guilty of this as well, is that sometimes you're so in it.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, this, but actually you're all right, you know? Like you're all right. Like when I posted something on Facebook 7 years ago, and when I was still working local government, blah, 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 blah. And I was talking about just how unhappy I was. And Akaija had just been born.
Amazing.
And so I had just gone back to work. So imagine spending that time with your new family and then going back to a job that you absolutely hated. And then I was like, and I use like baking bread as an analogy, saying I got to go out and make earn the bread, but I got my eye on a different type of bread, a bread that you make from home. And that was 7 years ago. And It's like, I read it just the other day and thought, oh, look, you're baking the bread from home. And so at the time, going into work was like, oh my gosh, the worst thing in the world. But actually 7 years has actually passed by quite quickly, and you know, and the thing is still evolving and changing.
Yeah, you know what? I always, funny enough, I kind of always praise the younger Michael more than I kind of rate where I'm at today. Because bro, the tenacity, he was sure, bro.
There's a
He was so
fearlessness that you
sure.
have.
Sorry?
There's a fearlessness that you
Yeah,
have.
and this is the moments that we're talking about, like, because I think knowledge sometimes can stunt you. It's what I think as we get older, and that's why I always say try and do those things young, because once you say, don't want to go over there, it's dangerous over there. I've been told, they've told me, they made me understand it. When you're young, you're like, man, I'm going over there, I'm gonna jump this thing. And when I think about him, he was just so fearless, bro. I look back on him, I'm like, wow, you were sure. You know, and even when I do work and I do my notes, and that's why you always have to stay active. I do go back in those gems. That younger self just brings it forth. Like I remember when I come to some teaching my course now at the Guildhall, and bro, like I come to go through my notes now, and he's prepared everything. I just need to organize it to teach, and I'm like, you know what? Go on.
Yeah.
Go on, Mike. Yeah, you. Yeah. Do you understand? Like, bro, it's crazy. That's why you always got to stay ready. And yeah, man, be kind to yourself, bro. Like, be kind to yourself. I think that's the biggest thing. And I'm not all of the what the youths are doing now and all of those things, but I've got my thing. Do you know what I mean? And you stay kind to yourself in terms of your mental health and say, yeah, I know who I am, I know what I'm about, and this is what I have to offer. And you know what? This is too much, or this is not for me. Just be kind to yourself. Don't think you got to be in everything, on everything, making things happen. No, you got to just do your thing. And yeah, that's what I would say to them. I'll just say, you're all right. Keep on moving, because without all of those initial efforts, I wouldn't be here where I am today.
Thank you. Well, Mike.
Yes, brother.
It's all. The thing is, we could go on, but I'm trying to like
condense it.
You know, but one of the things probably that I want to say is like, there's on a selfish level, creating this grind, hustle, repeat for me is like having you know, I said it at the beginning, we sit down and we talk and whatnot have you, but I always appreciate being able to sit down and talk with you and to take the gems that you've got, and today has been no different. So I appreciate that. Yeah, because it's just always like I always get like a feeling of enrichment after I've spoken with you.
But likewise, man, because obviously there's things that you have and there's successes that you have that, you know, I wish I could definitely have all. You know, you give me so much more perspective in, you know, and you know what, I must admit, man, all of us as a family, we always, regardless if you need to be told something and made to understand certain thing, we know it's love. Do you know what I mean? And I just love that you've always been such a powerful force in making me, number one, see myself, because I think it's hard to kind of do what I do because you're just doing it. And I just do love the fact that for me, with you guys anyway, with the family, it's just, I feel like I'm at ground zero. And I love the fact that in this conversation, we never focused on the work. Do you know what I mean? Because we could just talk about, I did this show. I love the fact that we just,
I think that for me, that was the intention as well. Like I think there was, like I said, the conversations that we have as well. Like I said, I get so much from it, but there's always been something in the back of my mind, like I want to share this with more people. Like I want to share these conversations with more people. And so yeah, no, I guess that's what we've done here today. So
sick. Will we be doing this again, or is it just a one-time thing?
Bro, you can come back whenever. Like,
bro, whenever you got a topic and you think I'm useful,
I would definitely do that. Sure. Yeah, because I've really enjoyed this. You know that anyway.
Come on, bro, I'm vexed. I just want to come around the yard and come and chill out.
Listen, that's on the agenda. We've got to do that one very soon.
Yeah, man. Figure out.
Listen, take care. Thank you very much for your time. For those of you watching, follow us, Grind Hustle Repeat _ on Instagram. And yeah, stay tuned. There's going to be loads more interviews loads more discussions, having those important conversations around creativity and culture. Peace.
Nice one. Thanks for having me, bro.
Well, thank you for being here.